Even if it's completely like in an accident or something, you'd be able to identify whether that's an animal or a human being.
Correct.
Yes?
Correct, yeah.
So how is it possible for all of this DNA, which we know is a specific code in there, and a specific design in there?
Yeah.
How do you think it came about randomly?
I think we got really, really, really lucky.
I think it's time.
Come on, seriously?
lucky.
You're going to put it down to luck?
I think you absolutely can, yeah.
I don't think you can have anything randomly existing which is consistent.
Everything is random.
In fact, random itself is not random.
Yeah, I know.
If you ask the people who deal with random, they'll tell you there are certain sequences in this, and hence it's not random.
But could you just take consciousness for example? I always question how the hell are we conscious? Like,
very good question, actually. Very good question.
And my first,
well, what's the answer to that?
First answer for me is we're never gonna know. So I accept that we're never gonna know.
No, but you can't say we're never gonna know.
No, it doesn't mean I'm not going to continuously talk about it like we are.
Yeah.
But for me, I would rather, with creation, for example, I accept that as humans, we're going to have no idea of knowing.
No, but why do you say there won't be?
Accept just to not know and think and develop forever. But I will never know, and I will never say whether there is or.
Why would you say you would never know?
Because how would we?
Unless you know the future, how can you say you will never know? You don't know the future, do you? It is like me saying I've lost a ring. I will never ever find it. Maybe somebody who has the device, somebody has the tools, are able to find it. If I'm not able to find it, but for you to make this assertion that you will never find an answer to such a thing is kind of problematic in itself, because then you're assuming that you know the future.
Okay, I wouldn't say that
I don't know what he meant by we, but I'm assuming human beings, right?
I wouldn't say I'm predicting the future. I'm saying that I'm making a wise decision, having looked at the history and having looked at the way the world's developed, how there are multiple religions and stories that people love to ascribe themselves to. You know, we have people who love to think about what's it called, star signs and everything, which I love to think about, but that's their own narrative and story.
No, but hold on.
And there is in history.
People have spoken about consciousness. Other religions have spoken about consciousness. In fact, Islam speaks about consciousness. Today, if you go and speak to a psychologist, they will speak to you about consciousness. They'll tell you about emotions and how you actually are impacted by it. So consciousness itself, which we call the nafs, okay, it's quite broad in its understanding, but we do have a lot of information about it. Yes?
What do you think?
For example, how would you define consciousness?
I define it as an inner awakeness, an inner monologue, and an inner aliveness.
It's basically just awareness.
Sorry?
It's just awareness. So if awareness, to be aware of your environment, that's if you're conscious of your environment, hence you're conscious.
Sounds like you're saying it's like a physical thing then.
No, it is not. It's not a physical thing. Your consciousness is something which the scientists have no empirical evidence for. So it cannot be physical. Because if it was physical, they would have by now had the evidence for consciousness. The reason it's called the hard problem of consciousness is because you, I, and all the scientists know that we have consciousness, yet they have no empirical evidence for it.
But just because they don't have empirical evidence now doesn't mean they won't have it in the future.
Exactly my point. That's what the lady was saying, that we will never know. To make this assertion itself is problematic because you don't have the tools maybe right now. But all I'm saying is that, in fact, there's something called the philosophy of science, which does believe in consciousness, which believes in the metaphysical, yes, which can explain to you things about emotions and so on. Like I said, psychology is one of them. Yeah. But science itself is something which is the study of the naturalistic world, right, which is beyond the scope of science to understand the metaphysical, like your consciousness.
Going back to that point previously, you're saying it's beyond the point of science to understand metaphysical.
Different sciences. One is called the philosophy of science, the other is naturalistic science. So even science has different fields. Okay,
but the philosophy of science part just sounds like.
Like what?
I don't really.
It's much more broad than actual science. You know that.
Yeah, but how is it science though?
It is science because you cannot separate things like metaphysical.
What is the philosophy of science?
For example, things which are beyond just the naturalistic world, it takes that into account. Your emotions, for example, you cannot see your emotions in a lab or under a microscope and say, okay, this is how you're feeling now. So if I were to ask you, whom do you love more, your pet or your parents? How can you, other than yourself, how will you prove objectively to anybody else your answer? You can't.
But that's not really the philosophy of science.
It is.
You could probably
Ask a psychologist,
you probably could,
and they will be able to tell you, asking you certain questions.
if they could see your like sensory reaction to like negative things happening to your parents and your pets.
No,
then the
electrochemical
one
impulses have got nothing to do with consciousness or your emotions. A person taking drugs can show those signs. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just how these are mechanical things within your body. They undergo a certain change depending on certain observations within at that particular time. Like I said, it can be induced by chemicals. Do you know that?
Yeah, but I think that's like
it's got nothing to do with consciousness.
I think that's like a precursor to consciousness, though.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's
Can we go back to the
that's fine.
It's the operation of your brain through the neurons, which are physical. And how they interact at that particular time. It's got nothing to do with consciousness itself.
I disagree.
Yeah.
That's all. I think
they wouldn't call it.
Maybe
my friend, they wouldn't call it a heart problem.
So much better. That's getting to the point where.
No, that's psychology. So the psychologists, they ask you certain questions, and based on that, they deduce the answer that this is yes, you love your cat more than your mom. See what I mean? So this is through inference, and there's nothing wrong in that. But that doesn't mean that they have evidence of that they can observe under a microscope. So it is based on inference. See what I mean? Similarly, we can understand where the universe came from based on inference. So if I were to ask you that the universe created itself, would you believe that? Or would that even be rational?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay, it did exist at one point, and then created itself. Think it didn't exist?
It didn't exist, and it
created itself.
I don't think
is that rational?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
It doesn't make sense that it created itself.
Yes.
But why?
That would be saying a mother gave birth to herself.
I appreciate
something
your
like
point.
that. Similar. It's an analogy. I know it's not perfect.
So taking it back to like what you think a creator is, then like what?
Okay. So before we jump to the creator, we need to go through certain inferences and to understand, like the Kalam cosmological argument which you talked about. The first point of that is anything that begins to exist must have a cause. Now we have already eliminated that the cause could be the universe itself. Do you agree? Because the universe didn't exist. It didn't exist in the first place. There's no way it could have caused itself. You answered the question already.
I know this goes. I know how it goes.
Yeah, I've done this as well.
Okay.
Go on then.
But you answered the question for me actually, so I'm so glad. Let's vote for me. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, let's say that we've taken that as a
that is taken care of.
Yeah.
Now there's a possibility where many people say is that can something come from nothing? Think before you answer. Can something like you and me, like the universe itself, can it come from nothing? And if you want, we can go through what nothing actually means.
I know what it means, but
how do you define absolute nothing?
Not even like a void.
Yeah.
There literally is nothing.
How would you define absolute nothingness?
You can't really define it.
It's not like
it's very hard.
Okay, let me rephrase that question. Does nothing exist?
No.
No.
Good answer. I'm surprised you guys know this. MashaAllah. Let's work for me, like I said. Because many times,
study philosophy.
Alhamdulillah, many times I have to actually go through a lot of lengthy discussions just to understand, make them understand that nothing doesn't even exist. Because absolute nothingness, I would define it as absence of everything. How is that for philosophical answer? Absence of everything that you can imagine, that you can think of, that you know.
It's impossible now that we're here, like nothing doesn't exist and it never.
So it doesn't exist. So something that doesn't exist cannot bring about something that does exist. Do you agree? Something that doesn't even exist, like nothing.
Sure.
Cannot bring about something that does exist, like you and me.
Okay.
Yeah? Let alone the universe. Okay, so now we have eliminated two things. The universe cannot create itself. It cannot come from nothing. Now, what is the best alternative you can give me? Because I don't want to use any terms from my theist perspective and put it in your mouth. I want you to, because you guys come from a philosophical background, give me your best shot as to what could be the cause of the universe. Do you study philosophy?
Oh, no, I did. I did it at A-level.
A-level?
Only a little bit.
Okay. Yourself?
Yeah, but I did English as well.
Oh, that's good.
So
literature does help.
loads.
It does help, yeah. Shall we just say something? Let's say X. Something created the universe.
I can take that.
Yeah?
I can take that something.
Okay. Now give
Thing.
yeah, thing. It has to be, it cannot be nothing, so it must be
To me,
the opposite of
definitely
nothing
cannot
is
be a
something, right?
Okay.
Let's say something. It cannot be nothing, it has to be something.
It definitely can't be a person.
Okay, now we need to ask you what is a person.
A human like you.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely not a person.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, do you acknowledge it has a will?
It has what?
A will.
A will.
To bring something into existence, you need a will.
No, I'm not sure about that.
No,
Why?
I'm not sure.
How can something happen without a will? If you're an agency, in order for you to act, you need a will to bring about bring about that action into manifestation. In order to manifest any of your as a being, you must have a will.
Okay, but we haven't established that the something that created the universe was being.
Yeah, but that's the reason I'm asking. If it has a will, then by definition it must be a being.
No, but for example, like
So let's understand.
Why, but does it have to have? When you say will, what do you mean by will?
In order to cause something.
It's tried actively to do.
No,
this,
not actively. In order to cause something, you must action it.
Okay.
Okay. So if I were to move a ball,
a leaf flying through the air, that's no will, but it's still moving.
Yeah.
I don't.
So the
think
cause of that.
something needs to have will.
No. The cause of that is the wind. Okay.
But there's no will.
That's fine. But in order, the wind didn't come from just a void, would it? Everything, like I said.
There's no will in wind.
No. I know, but
So
the
there
wind.
can be movement and still
Do you think the wind?
happening
Do you think
without will?
Okay. Do you think the wind is self-sufficient, independent, or the wind itself is contingent on something else?
The will is the
will is contingent.
Will or the wind?
Sorry. Okay. The wind. I'm getting confused myself.
The wind.
Yes.
The wind is contingent on something else.
Exactly. It has to be.
No. Yeah.
Remember the first law or the first rule of Kalam cosmology. Anything that exists, yes, or sorry, anything that begins to exist must have a cause. The wind began to exist somewhere around the globe. I'm pretty sure. Yes, doesn't matter which wind you talk about. Okay, it has a cause. So anything that and we have to go through this exercise of what caused it, and you'll come to a conclusion that anything that begins to exist is contingent. So now going back to this, the cause of the universe, which we call something. Yes. Okay. Before even we speak about will, let's at least say that it is not contingent. Because if it was contingent, then you'll have an infinite regress where you're going to ask, okay, what caused this? What caused X? What caused Y? Z, so on. See what I mean? And it's a never-ending infinite regress, which in reality doesn't exist, just like nothing. Logically speaking, you cannot have something going
We have
on.
established that. I have accepted that we eliminated the first two things.
So nothing and universe is causing.
Creating itself.
Yeah.
So
And the third thing we can eliminate is infinite regress.
And we have eliminated that, yes.
Yeah.
There can't be an infinite regress, yes.
Yeah.
But
So the only thing we have
so there's something, fine. But saying that something needs to have will, that's what I'm not sure about.
Because like I said, in order to cause something to come into existence when it didn't exist at all.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
But think about it this way: like, if you have all the ingredients, because when we're talking about the universe, talking about like a really long time, and maybe people like to say that, things happen over a long period of time, and it's a mechanism. There's no need for will and all this stuff. If you think about it this way, like if you had the ingredients of a recipe in a kitchen, you just had the ingredients there with no willing agent. If you left it there for 1,000,000 years, will the recipe ever be made?
Okay.
So you could have all the right ingredients for a universe, for existing, all these things, right? But if you didn't have an agent with a will and willed this and took all these things and created this,
To action it, you need something or someone to
you
action
need
it.
somebody, an agent to do this thing. So you could tell now that
Why
this,
are we saying it's somebody?
No, but
How could it
no,
be?
we are still on something.
So surely
We're still on
something, sorry.
Something.
Yeah,
We're still on
something,
something. So in order, look, if anything that has a will, then automatically it is a being. Do you agree?
It's a being.
A being.
A being.
Like
It could be a human being, it could be another
okay.
being. Okay, all this, because you as a human being, you have a will.
no, but the other example that we use is you could just chuck up a load of letters and it lands into Shakespeare or something like that, right?
No, not
That
Yeah,
would be
I have heard
magic.
this. Yeah,
Where do you
Yeah,
get that from?
No, but technically that could happen.
No, but there is still a willing agent. You
That's
see that?
technically
No, do you
possible.
see the willing agent though? Like to get the
Throwing
shit,
it up.
you're still throwing it up.
No, but
Yeah, no.
So
I
if you
appreciate
had
that.
lettuce,
Still need the raw material.
I appreciate that, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a being.
No, it's
but
still-
when you say, look, you can't expect letters to just form a book. This is
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
No, but
Theoretically, it's
the being could be
possible
even
for the
something.
letters.
Not that. No. If you just have all those letters in a pile, once something would have to throw those letters up for
Yeah.
it to land into.
But do you
at the
notice
very
how
least, I
that thing? Do
appreciate
you notice
that.
how that thing has will, has volition?
But you could have it.
In order
like
to
a
have-
machine that does that.
Yeah. So even to say that it's some kind of like willing agent.
the machine has to be
Okay, no,
designed. The machine,
appreciate
the machine
that,
didn't pop out of existence, does it?
No.
So we have to go. Whatever example you give, you have to know.
But the-
Go back to the first law, first rule of
the machine has to be like an actual machine. It would be something natural that has that.
Yeah, so
hasn't-
give
that
us
hasn't
this-
been designed or made by.
So
a
give us
person.
this example. What is this thing? What is this natural thing which can bring about the universe? Go on. I'm waiting.
First of all, what natural thing-
I'm not making any sort of.
All I'm saying is that in order to action it,
I'm not making a claim there.
that's
so-
fine. In order natural thing to action something, it must have a will. In order to design the universe, in order to create the universe, in order to bring from nothing something, all of this requires someone, which is something, someone or something, which is a willing agent.
Okay.
Okay,
But then
so if
how,
this
how,
agent
how,
is-
we, how we go from something to someone?
Yeah, I don't,
Like I said, the
still-
will. You have to. You cannot divorce the will from this agent now.
For me, I just can't compute that.
Show me anything that happens without it being caused. It has to have a cause.
Yeah,
And
no,
this
I
this
appreciate that,
causation.
but there's not. But lots of things aren't consciously caused, though.
No, but there must be some. Look, anything that begins to exist. Like you took the example of wind. You haven't shown me anything that does not have a cause so far. Everything has a cause.
No, I agree.
Okay, so the only thing that does not have a cause is what brought is this necessary thing, if you want to call it, something or some being, whatever you want to call it. This necessary entity, yes, has to bring about the universe, and in order to bring it about into existence, it must have a will. Yeah, just ignore this.
Worship numbers.
Okay?
And the number is 9.
See what I mean?
So I got distracted a little bit there. Apologies.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
The speaker's corner, we got hackers.
Not your fault. Don't worry.
Okay.